What's up, YouTube? I am the Planet Rocks, and welcome back to another playthrough of Chess of Blades. We are, of course, doing the Franz route right now, and be sure to subscribe to my channel, hit the bell for notifications, and please do like this video. You can also like my page on Facebook and follow me on Twitter. Alrighty. After bantering a bit, we decide to return to our rooms for a rest before the dinner and dance take place in the evening. We start strolling through the stalls in the opposite direction in the direction of the castle. We buy a few more small things on the way, and I manage to get my hands on a rather nice emerald-studded brooch from my mother. By the time we arrive back at the castle entrance, it's already turning to late afternoon, the sun's golden shape gradually descending in the west. I part ways with Arden, denying his request for me to show him my room, and hurry back up to the second floor. Dumping my bag of miscellaneous purchases on top of my clothes trunk, I put my boots off and throw myself onto the luxurious bed with a soft groan. Despite how tired I am from all that walking around, a strange tension won't leave my body. I won't go as far as to say it's a feeling of foreboding, but it's as if some sixth sense I have is tingling, rather ominously.
It's all that bastard Franz's fault, making me all paranoid.
Wallowing languidly in my self-pity, I sprawl out over the covers, nestling against my pillow and letting out a deep sigh. I'm sure it doesn't matter if I fall asleep, since Silas will probably come wake me up again. It's pretty impressive that he manages to remember a single guest among the hundreds he must be here. The skill of a royal butler, I suppose. I close my eyes and try to catch a little rest. However, I can't manage to slip into more than a light doze, tossing and turning from side to side. Either from lingering excitement or apprehension, I'm too restless to fall into a deep sleep. There's been too much stimulation today for an introvert like me, damn it. I probably haven't talked to so many different people in years.
It's no use.
Opening my eyes, I grudgingly pull myself up into a sitting position, staring through the balcony doors into the evening sky. A part of me wants to go out and lean on the balustrade, but I'd rather avoid a repeat of last night. As I sit on my bed contemplating what to do, a knock suddenly comes to my door. I slide off onto the floor and stride over to open it, but hesitate. It's probably just Silas, but what if it's someone who...
Have some balls, man. God's sake.
Scolding myself quietly, I pull the door open, although I take a step back just to be safe. Before me stands a young man, probably a couple of years my junior. I definitely don't recognize him. Why is he staring at me like I just morphed into a monster?
Sorry, sir. I got the wrong room.
Oh, well, don't worry about it. Looking for someone in particular?
Just Miss Celeste's.
His stuttering, while perhaps cute at first, is quickly getting on my nerves.
Celeste, you say? I think I may have met her earlier. I didn't know she was in the same hall as me.
I thought she was, but maybe not. I'll go find her. Sorry again.
Right.
I watch as he scampers off down the corridor, hastily examining all the room numbers. What an odd boy. He's either very shy, or completely out of sorts for some reason. I wonder how he knows Celeste. I'll have to ask her the next time I run into her. Well, seeing as there's not much else for me to do, I might as well take a little stroll around the castle before I head downstairs. I stuff my hands in my pockets and mosey around the hallway corner, making sure there's not an Arden lurking in wait. It seems to be clear, so I wander down the next hall with a relieved exhale. I make my way towards the general direction of the main hall, but with the occasional detour to admire tapestries and small alcoves decorated with paintings and plush chairs. There are probably a lot of interesting nooks and crannies in this place. After all, the king is known for his love of collecting things, including, apparently, collecting a bunch of foreigners who hate the Varison bloodline.
Hmm?
Is that a person over there or a statue? Either way, they look very intent in whatever they're
Oh, no.
As quietly as possible, I start to back away, praying not to be noticed. Can we all guess who it is that's standing there? Can we all guess? Shit. Damn these squeaky floorboards. I freeze in place as the tall figure turns towards me, glasses flashing in the light.
Is that the little lint picker looking to creep up on me again?
Talk about holding a grudge. Deciding it's probably best to be polite, rather than doing too much to get on his bad side, I clear my throat.
Inquisitor, I was just heading down to the main hall.
Linnaeus' eyes glint behind his glasses as he closes the book in his hand and saunters towards me.
I could have sworn there's a much simpler way to get to the main hall than through this back passage.
Well, I was exploring a little, you know. It's a shame to have all this fine art and no one to view it.
Huh.
After his scornful laugh, he taps a finger on the unmarked cover of his book, watching me suspiciously. I brace myself for what's undoubtedly an accusation, tensing slightly.
I suppose I owe you an apology.
What?
I tap the side of my head, wondering if my hearing's gone bad. Linnaeus lets out a "hm" in response, his eyes narrowing.
I was, perhaps, excessively rude earlier. There was an unexpected occurrence this morning that had put me in something of a foul mood.
It seems bizarre for him to be actually remorseful. Is he trying to make fun of me? I narrow my eyes at him slightly, trying to judge his intentions. I don't believe that he's actually sorry at all. More than likely, he's just trying to set me up for another insult. Well, I'm not falling for it.
I see. Well, what's done is done. We all have our sour moods every now and then. Some more than others.
Offering a concise reply, I briskly change the subject, not giving him time to come up with any further sour remarks.
Are you heading down as well? Are Grand Inquisitors free to mingle and dance with us common folk?
While my presence here is as a guest of His Majesty, I do not consider myself to ever be off-duty. After all, it is not as if treasonous men stop being treasonous during pleasant gatherings. If anything, the risk is higher.
Despite his haughty tone, it's hard to deny that he really does take his job seriously. I suppose it's one of those positions that doesn't allow much time for rest. Linnaeus turns and motions for me to follow him down the corridor, setting off in a brisk pace in the direction of the main hall. I catch up to his side and glance at his severe-looking profile, his eyes constantly scrutinizing the world around him from behind those glasses.
If you follow in your father's footsteps and wind up in His Highness's ring of advisors, it is best we learn to tolerate each other.
He pauses for a moment, then his voice suddenly growing a little more hesitant.
There are many in his circle who I find to be of questionable nature. But nonetheless, it is not my duty to speak against his decisions.
I hope you didn't consider father to be of questionable nature.
His eyes flick down towards me sharply. I meet his gaze as best I can, even though that hawkish stare is quite difficult to be the subject of.
He is a man possessed of exceptional perceptiveness, enough so to rival my own. That is all I shall say. Do I sense sarcasm in your voice? Need I remind you of our truce?
Sorry about that, guys. I clicked it too quick. I pursed my lips doubtfully. Truce or not, I doubt he'll be inclined to hold back from insulting me if I slip up somewhere. This man is vicious. We emerge at the balcony of the main hall, where it seems guests are starting to gather in their formal attire. I noticed the girl from earlier, Celeste, was it? Standing next to an older, slightly rotund man, chatting happily. Her father, I wonder? The doors to the dining hall are soon opened by well-dressed attendants. I walk with Linnaeus into the rather magnificent room.
Oh, is that the Grand Inquisitor? Who's Daddy's with? Are they brothers?
I want to marry a man like that, Regal.
Sounds like the Inquisitor is rather popular. I guess it makes sense. He's quite young, but he already holds one of the most important positions in court. After destroying potential rivals' will to live and crushing the opposition, no doubt.
The superficiality of court never fails to disgust me. I long for the day when a man is judged by his actions rather than his outward appearance.
I hate to tell you this, but you'll be longing for that day until you die. If appearances didn't matter here, we'd all be wearing burlap bags.
Perhaps you should be the trendsetter, hmm? A burlap bag on your head would undoubtedly be an improvement.
Well, I set myself up for that one. We get closer to the massive table, and it seems like there's no predetermined seating, something unusual for an event of this caliber. But maybe the king wants a more relaxed atmosphere. Guests seem to be sitting down with their friends and relatives, and there seem to be a few blushing courtships in progress before even the soup is served. I spot Arden already seated, looking rather uncomfortable and surrounded by what looks like a bunch of old ladies. Aunts, maybe? His grandmother definitely did pop out quite a few daughters, if I remember correctly. There's no free seating around him, although it's not like I need another dose of Arden again so soon anyway.
Well, I assume there are individuals who would appreciate your company more than myself. So, this is presumably where we part ways.
I turn to see Linnaeus staring past me idly, his eyes following the servants skittering about with preparations.
You've already got a seat in mind?
Not particularly. If I find one with a view of the dining room I like, I shall politely request its occupant to vacate.
He smirks, somewhat evilly, a rather sadistic glint shining through the lens of his glasses. Talk about the abuse of power.
Well, you're far from my ideal dinner partner. But I don't see anyone else I know around, and I'd rather not be sought out by a certain lady from last night.
I grimace, that saccharine cooing replaying itself all too vividly in my ears.
Flattering! Have you already been caught up in my suave charm, like those admirers from earlier?
You have about as much charm as a pile of bricks, I remark silently to myself, following Linnaeus over to a vacant set of seats. We settle down in our surprisingly comfortable chairs, neither of us inclined to share many words as we wait for the meal to begin. Just as I begin reciting poetry in my head out of sheer boredom, the empty chair by my side opposite Linnaeus is suddenly pulled out. Thrilled at the idea of a potentially more exciting conversation partner, I quickly cast a welcoming smile upwards.
Ah, greetings. My name is...
Don't you think I know your name by now, little kitten?
A tall, tan man lowers himself into the seat beside me, pulling himself up close, a wide, wolfish grin on his lips.
Oh, Fortuna, why must you torture me so?
As Franz chuckles contentedly and leers at me, Linnaeus, who is watching something in the distance, suddenly turns his attention towards us.
Oh? I was under the impression you had no friends, Verisin, other than your father and that oaf of a guard.
He is the farthest thing from a friend, let me tell you.
A scrutinizing, gleeful glimmer fills Linnaeus's glasses visibly.
Ah, I see, I see. Well, we do live in a progressive time. There's nothing wrong with two men deeply in love.
I audibly grind my teeth together while Franz lets out a delighted laugh, taking those words as his cue to curl his arm about my shoulders. Maybe I'll get lucky, and someone will poison my wine while I'm not looking. I'm over here, assassins! Yoo-hoo!
You'll hear that? Nothing wrong with giving in to your desires.
However, it is entirely inappropriate for Varyson's son to frolic with an obvious foreigner.
Wow.
You should cease such disgusting actions immediately.
Linnaeus's voice suddenly grows much frostier, a clear look of mistrust on his sharp features as he watches Franz, lips curled in distaste. To my surprise, the broad smirk on Franz's face suddenly flickers a little, his own expression darkening somewhat. He glances over Linnaeus for a moment, in what's probably the first time I've seen him look annoyed.
Grand Inquisitor. Right. I see the king has played one of his trump cards a little early.
Trump card? Why in heaven's name would he need to do that?
I think you know as well as I do, Inquisitor. But I'm sure you've got everything under control.
I swear, I feel like I'm sitting between two cannons pointed at each other. The sudden animosity in the air is thicker than a bowl of uncooked porridge. I should do something before it explodes.
Look, they're bringing the food out, finally. I'm completely famished, aren't you two?
They continue to glower at each other, even as the servants place an array of tantalizing platters in front of us, filled with dishes of both vegetables and meats.
Wow, they brought desserts too! My goodness, look at all that cake! I'm almost tempted to skip the main courses.
To my immense relief, Franz pulls away from the staring contest first, his gaze shifting from Linnaeus to me. The lingering antagonism in his stare makes me cringe a little, considering I'm accustomed to his usual bedroom eyes. That iciness quickly melts away, however, and he reaches out to squeeze my shoulder with unnerving intimacy.
Sweets for the sweet, they say. You should eat all the cake you like, kitten. It'll make your lips taste sublime, I'm sure.
He starts to pick up from a few dishes to fill his plate, humming to himself in a show of nonchalance.
What irresponsible advice. Replenish your energy properly with a balanced meal, Varyson.
Chiding me with a click of his tongue, Linnaeus also reaches forward to elegantly serve himself some of the spread before us, casting a quick side glance in my direction. The tension clearly remains hanging between them, but just because they're acting all haughty doesn't mean I should starve myself. I eye the dishes, contemplating whether to splurge or not. Well, this is Franz's route, so we are going to have some cake. Damn, that whipped cream is simply just too enticing. I pull up the slice of cake in front of me, sighing happily. This is what it means to be an adult.
Oh, is that your shy little way of saying you want to kiss after all?
Smirking rather victoriously, Franz swipes a bit of cream off the cake with his finger and licks it off in the lewdest manner I can imagine.
Disgusting. And you're no better, you know. What would your father think?
His razor-sharp glare directed at me now. Linnaeus shakes his head disparagingly and takes an irritated bite of bread. I wince a little while nibbling a bit of cake off my fork, deciding to not retort and further fan the flames.
Oh, by the way, Have either of you picked out your costumes for the masquerade yet? I forgot to look for a mask today.
Deciding to change the subject, I pick up my glass of wine and peer at each of the two men over the top. My rather spontaneous question doesn't get an immediate response, but Linnaeus soon lets out a light snort.
The entire affair is ridiculous, if you ask me. The fanciful concept of a masquerade is so contrived, it makes my stomach churn.
I think they're enchanting. Mystery only adds to the beauty of things, after all.
Murmuring, a little dreamily, Franz trails a finger along the rim of his own glass, watching me with a subtle smile.
Something like that, perhaps.
Mysteries only cause problems in mortal existence. One should dedicate one's career to providing answers, not questions.
That's the attitude of a man with no romance in his life. You wouldn't be able to understand.
Aren't they taking this a little too seriously? It's just a damn masquerade.
Ah, is that the new wine they're bringing out? Oh, right, the king's favorite. Well, should we have a toast?
After we're each served a fresh glass filled with the fruity liquid, both Linnaeus and Franz turn from glaring at each other to watch me expectantly. Well, I guess I was the one who proposed a toast. In that case, let's toast to... Okay, I mean, obviously it's to love. That's gotta be Franz right there.
To the beauty of love, and to the hope that our lives shall be filled with it as we forge our paths as great men.
As I make a show of gazing inspiringly into the distance, I find myself wondering how I even got into this situation. Well, I'd rather them laugh at me than stare daggers at each other.
That was...
Adorable indeed.
With the moment of silence broken, Franz leans in to press his lips against my ear, murmuring lowly, "Oh, Franz."
I'll fill your life with love if you wish, little kitten. And there are other things I can fill too.
Ugh, Franz. I forcefully guide Franz's shoulder back out of my bubble of personal space, and he snickers delightedly all the while. If I weren't a refined gentleman, I'd dump my wine into his lap right now. I bet that would get rid of his infuriating little smirk. We continued to dine for a little while longer, the two men exchanging frequent jabs in between my forced attempts to mediate. Finally, unable to stand much more of the incredible awkwardness, I push out my chair and rise to my feet.
Well, it seems like they're opening the doors to the ballroom. I think I'll go catch a bit of fresh air before all that dancing starts.
Not sticking around even to hear a reply, I quickly toss my napkin on the chair and hasten towards the main hall. Luckily, there are a few other people who've left the dining hall to chatter privately or stroll around, so I don't look too out of place.
Never again.
I have no idea how I got caught up in that situation, but it's certainly one I don't want repeated. Those two are bad enough by themselves, yet somehow get exponentially worse together. Ugh. Finding my way to one of the back doors, I step out into the gardens and take a deep breath of the night air. The sounds of laughter and the clinking of silverware become distant, barely audible through the castle walls. There's an ornate stone bench nested among the hedges and fragrant bushes, so I lower myself onto it with a soft sigh. It feels amazing. My dining chair, however plush, turned out to provide a miserable experience, nesting me between an unstoppable force and an immovable object. I clasp my hands behind my head and gaze up at the sky, where the almost full moon floats in a sea of stars. It looks so serene and peaceful, two words that don't seem to have any place at this bustling celebration. All the grandiose parties I've been to with my family in the past weren't nearly as magnificent in scale. That's right, my family. A smile gradually forms on my lips as I fondly wonder what they're doing right now. Father, mother, my little sister, who's a few years older than Hazel is. If I have a family of my own someday, will they all get embroiled in these endless politics and quarrels? I think I'd rather have a quiet life in the countryside than be forced to keep dabbling in court affairs, and I'd never want my family to be in a situation like this.
Would I be able to give up fine wines and full days of just lazing around and reading, though? Rural life sounds like hard work.
I pluck a rose from one of the bushes nearby, admiring the soft petals as I cup it in my hands, minding the thorns, of course. Arden, Linnaeus, Franz, they all seem so at home here, like they were born to be around bustling crowds and courtly intrigue. Could I ever be someone like that? Do I want to be? A part of me is perfectly happy with how I am now, but another, smaller part of me wants more. To dance, to charm others, to read politics as well as I used to read my favorite picture books as a little boy. But I really wonder if it's worth it, or if it'll ever happen. They say you can change yourself into what you really want to be if you try hard enough, but it feels like some parts of myself are just immutable, a core part of who I am. Who am I? Well, an avid reader, a purveyor of delicious sweets, the son of the best military strategist in our kingdom's history, and incidentally, still very much a virgin. Nearby, a faint rustling sound startles me from my thoughts. If I strain my ears, I can barely hear the sound of whispering, just like yesterday during the dance. Gritting my teeth in determination to find this mystery whisperer, I creep closer in its direction as quietly as I can.
Back inside.
Let them hear.
A few phrases are discernible, but I can't really figure out what they're saying. But for some reason, ominous words echo in the back of my mind. Mark my words, something unpleasant is going to happen. You will be dragged into it, whether you like it or not. A shiver runs down my spine in a cold tingle. What if this is what Franz was talking about? What if I... A sudden tap comes at my shoulder and I whirl around fast enough to almost lose my balance.
Whoa, calm down, Riv.
Rather than an assassin, the man who stands before me is... Arden.
What the hell are you doing here? No, shh, don't answer that. Wait.
I hold my finger to my lips and glare at Arden while straining my ears. The sound of whispering, however, is completely gone. Figures.
Riv? What is it? Why are you acting so strange?
Nothing.
I wave my hand dismissively, shaking my head. Maybe it's a good thing he came. After all, if those people really were up to something.
Is the dinner finished? There'll be a break before the dance, I assume.
Probably. I doubt I can dance with all that fricassee in me. And I think my cheeks are swollen from being pinched so much.
Oh, by your swarm of aunts? I almost felt sorry for you.
His cheeks do look a little pink. Arden nods a little sourly when I mention his fanatic female relatives, rubbing at the back of his neck with a hand.
I wanted to sit with you, but it didn't happen. I saw you with a couple of other gentlemen, though.
Arden, who is never good at hiding his curiosity, tilts his head in a manner obviously implying his interest. It was horrible. We should have eaten together. This one.
Yes, well, it was a rough meal. Let's leave it at that.
I see.
He looks a little disappointed at my lack of detail, but I've grown fairly immune to his innocent expressions.
You probably had it worse, though. I'm not envious at all.
Well, I'll avoid them next time. Hopefully.
He gives me a rather pointed look, as if to provoke some response he's hoping for, but I willfully ignore him. Taking a deep breath and smoothing my hair back with one hand, I start heading back towards the castle, motioning for Arden to follow. He quickly catches up to my side, distractedly gazing up at the stars.
Why were you out here anyway? Just for a walk?
Yes, I was in dire need of some fresh air. Otherwise, I probably would have passed out like a maiden with their corset stretched too tight.
How do you girls even wear those things? I'd explode after a minute.
The image of Arden in a corset comes to my mind, and I find myself highly disturbed.
Yes. Well, anyway, what are you going to do until the dance starts?
I question him as we step back inside the main hall, pausing as we pass the threshold.
Well, after you left the dining hall, we were told there was going to be some kind of announcement. I'll stick around to hear that. And afterwards, there might be time before the dance for me to go for a little jog.
Jogging before dancing? You athletic freak of nature.
I just hate feeling all full after a meal, you know. Need to work it off.
Yes, whatever you say.
As we head further into the main hall, I can see a number of guests have already left the dining room and returned here. If Arden's right, whatever announcement they have for us will probably be given in this hall. My eyes are suddenly drawn to a small figure standing amidst the crowd, talking with someone whose back is turned to me. That's the boy who knocked on my door earlier, isn't it? I wonder if he ever met up with Celeste. I saw her just before dinner, so perhaps the two of them had already spoken. Strange that he was so jumpy about it, though. Heaving a sigh, I eye some of the guests for a few moments before glancing over to Arden, elbowing his side a bit.
Well, it looks like most of our fellow fine-blooded company has finished dining. This is a very casual affair, isn't it?
Arden nods in agreement, rubbing a hand thoughtfully on his cheek.
I think most fancy galas tend to keep guests on a stricter watch or schedule. The king seems more interested in a relaxed atmosphere.
Maybe we're part of some grand social experiment. Like, you know, how long it takes noblemen to start throwing food fights or having sex in the closets?
Closets?
Arden's shocked expression at my casual remark is indubitably priceless. Really, hasn't he heard worse in the guard forces? It's a bunch of rowdy young men, for crying out loud.
Anyway, look, it's that fellow who read the schedule of festivities last night, up on the balcony. Is he going to give his announcement up there?
I squint up at the man's shape, as well as the scroll in his hands. The elegantly dressed crowd goes gradually quiet as all of our eyes focus on the top of the second-floor balcony. There's a bit of antsy shuffling as few folks probably drank too much wine are in desperate need of a visit to the nearest chamber pot. Clearing his throat, the announcer inhales deeply and begins to read.
Ladies and gentlemen, refined guests, we hope you have enjoyed His Highness's grand celebration so far. Tomorrow the festival will continue with new games and attractions, and it is His Majesty's sincere wish for you to delight in them all. Now, it is my great pleasure to introduce a highly esteemed guest of honor who...
Halfway through his sentence, the man reading the announcement suddenly cuts off. A servant who had just hurried up to his side whispers something in his ear, and I can tell from the announcer's widened eyes that something's happened.
Hey, is this something set up as part of the event?
Who's the guest? Who's the guest? I wanted to know so badly.
Murmuring breaks out through the crowd, impatient and curious whispers flitting around. Well, now I'm curious too, damn it. It must be something rather serious for him to just go silent like that.
Why, Arden, what do you think is... Huh?
When I glance over to where Arden was, I find a significant lack of Arden standing there now. He was never exactly one to be stealthy. Did he have to answer nature's call outside or something? He had plenty of time to do that earlier.
Ahem. It is my regret to announce that, due to unforeseen circumstances, our guest will not be presented tonight.
The uneasy voice of the announcer slices through the whispers pervading the room.
A small issue has arisen that His Majesty's men are currently attending to. We ask that all guests remain calm, as everything will be resolved by morning. During this while, please continue to enjoy the remaining festivities and report any suspicious behavior to the guards.
Finishing his announcement, he bows respectfully and disappears further beyond the balcony. Alrighty guys, I think I am going to call it a day for now. I want to thank you again for joining me on this playthrough of Chess of Blades. Be sure to subscribe to my channel, hit the bell for notifications, and please do like this video. Follow me on Twitter, like my page on Facebook, and turn on the live notifications so that you will be alerted to my live sessions, which happen every Saturday. Also be sure to subscribe to my Twitch page, which I also do live streaming sessions of on Saturday. Thank you so much. I am the Planet Rocks, and I'll see you next week.